guys, it's Emma and I'm back today for you with another video. And today we're doing my 2023 January monthly wrap-up. I did very well for just like reading in general in January. I'm very proud of myself, just plainly because, you know, like the last few months of 2022 were peppered with just complete burnout, and I read 9 books in January. Whether or not I read 9 good books is out of the question. We're not talking about that right now. I only read about maybe 4, 5, a handful that I would recommend. If you guys have read any of these books, if you guys liked any of these books that I read, if you guys didn't like any of these books that I read, if you disagree or agree on anything that I talk about with any of these books, let me know down below. Okay, so with that being said, let's just get right into it. So the first book that I read for January was The Bear by Claire Cameron. This is based on a true story, and it involves a family going to this national park, I think, in order to camp, and they're on this remote island, and they are attacked by a bear. The 2 parents are killed, and so it's up to the 5-year-old sister and the 2-year-old brother to basically survive and make it back to civilization. And we're following this story through Anna, the 5-year-old sister's POV. I gave this 2 stars, which was very disappointing, just plainly because I've had this on my TBR for maybe 2 years. Okay, so I've been waiting to read this book for a while. As soon as I realized that this book was going to be from the point of view of a 5-year-old, I knew I was in trouble. Pages long flashbacks, pages long. And as I got further and further into the book, I started to skim them, which leads me into my main gripe about this book. This book is a little over 200 pages, and barely anything happens in this. I mean, yeah, we go from the island to the beach to the forest, and then, you know, the kids get found. But other than that, there's really nothing else that happens. It feels very drawn out because, like I said, nothing happens other than the location changes. And it's just these 2 kids literally just fiddling around with the wilderness. And I don't know, it feels like the author was trying to, I don't know, get a page quota. And like I said, it feels very evident of that. The only really interesting thing about this book is the ending. But I would say if you were a fan of Hatchet, I don't quite remember who the author was, but I'll put a picture of the book right here. If you were a fan of this, when you were younger, because I had to read this for like 4th grade, 5th grade discovery class or something like that. But if you're a fan of Hatchet, you might actually like The Bear. I was not a fan of the Hatchet, which I guess makes sense. The next book that I read for the month of January is a fan favorite, not only on Book Talk, but I would say in the romance community in general, and that is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This is the first in the Twisted series, and this follows Alex and Ava. Alex Volkov is like this millionaire, very high IQ, very gruff, very icy exterior. And then Ava Chen, she's this very happy-go-lucky, very sunshine, very finds optimism in everything she can. And she and her brother Josh have gone through a lot of trauma in their lives, and Josh and Alex are best friends. So this book kind of plays off the trope of brother's best friend, which I've never read any book in that trope before, so this was definitely new. And when Josh goes off to get some medical school experience abroad, he enlists Alex to basically watch over Ava, because Josh is very protective of Ava due to, once again, all the trauma that they've experienced in their lives. And it's basically about the romance that Ava and Alex cultivate between each other. I gave this 3 stars. It's not the best book I've ever read, it's not the most enlightening thing I've ever read, but damn, was it entertaining, okay? The banter between Alex and Ava, I loved it. However, it felt like it took itself too seriously at times, i.e. with the very existential monologuing. The dirty talk in here at times drifted more towards a kink that I'm not really a fan of. So while the dirty talk was good, it did get a little bit extreme at times, which, you know, it's completely subjective, but that is a thing that I noticed. I also really enjoyed how it built up for the second book, Twisted Games, which was really the reason why I read this, because I really just want to read Twisted Games. Because that one has the bodyguard trope, and Honeycomb, if you know me, I love the bodyguard trope. I eat that shit up. These next two books, I DNF'd on the same night. We have Hench by Natalie, Zina, Walschots, and then So You've Been Publicly Shamed by John Ronson. We're gonna talk about Hench first. Hench, I think I DNF'd this at 6%. Which means I didn't rate it. I DNF'd it so early on because the writing style was infuriating for me. It felt to me like this author wrote ahead of herself and then had to go back and then just like hurriedly tie the pieces that she wrote together, which in my opinion was not very well done, because I just remember thinking to myself, why am I having to play Mad Libs with a published book? It was just so disappointing because I'd been looking so forward to reading Hench after Mayana from Mayana Reads had said that it was, you know, about a villain and a bystander falling in love, and I was like, ooh, a dark superhero story? I'm here for it. Alas, I was not. Which leads us to So You've Been Publicly Shamed. I DNF'd this one at around 20-something, 30-something%. Don't quite remember, but that means I also did not rate this one. It was good at first, but then as I read further on, it just got more and more monotone. It felt like we were just being fed case studies over and over and over again of people that you had either heard of or you hadn't heard of. And towards the point where I DNF'd it, it just felt like someone was holding a gun to my head at a TED Talk and was like, you're not leaving until this TED Talk is over. I don't know how I got from underneath that gun, but I did, and I DNF'd it. So no, also the tone, besides it being monotone, it felt condescending at points, like the author was trying to be like, yeah, well, this person tried to make a joke, and it actually turned out being severely racist, but I make jokes, and my jokes are perfect. And it's like, okay, calm it down. On a lighter note, we have All About Love by Bell Hooks. I gave this 3 stars. I first learned about Bell Hooks in my sociology class when we had to read a reading from her, and I really enjoyed reading the excerpt, and I was like, okay, well, let me read a work by her. And so All About Love was the one that I heard the most about. And this is basically just all about love and how our society views love and how our society kind of compromises love for other stuff. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was relatively very, very insightful. And I annotated it. The red tabs are for quotes that I really enjoyed, and then the darker tabs are for the things that I really didn't agree with her on. For example, she goes on to kind of give a relatively similar statement of money can't solve all your problems, which in my opinion, I don't even want to get started on that. I just think that's such a privileged and out of touch statement. Just no. So while I did have a few problems with just the type of discussions that were had in this book, I did overall really think it was very interesting. But it did get kind of repetitive at the very end. However, I don't think that's a very big con to this book. So I would say that if you are taking a sociology class right now or anything to do with arts and humanities, I would definitely pick this up. Next, we have probably the biggest disappointment of the month for me, and that is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This is about Betty, the titular character, who is the 6th of 8 siblings and whose family is very, very poor. And they're basically just trying to carve out a life for themselves. This is basically the Glass Castle, just, in my opinion, a little better. And placed in the Appalachians and with a Native American mixed family. I DNF'd this around 50%, which means I did rate it, and I rated it 2 stars, which is so disappointing for me because I was enjoying the writing in this book immensely. It's not even funny. The way this book is written is beautiful, okay? And I was having such a good time until I got to the 2 fully written out incestuous rape scenes. And just, I remember that was when I put it down, because even before those 2 scenes, this book, my main problem with it is that it seems to try to compete with itself with just how much misery it can inflict on this family. I think that's one of the reasons why I debated DNFing it so much, because even though I loved it, I was also like, this is honestly a little bit too much for me. So again, a very big disappointment because the writing in this is absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, no, I've read enough rape scenes in my life. I'm good. The next book that I read for January was a manga, and it was Mermaid Saga by Rumiko Takahashi. This is about Yuta, who is a man who has eaten mermaid flesh, and in this world, eating mermaid flesh turns you immortal, and you either stay a human and become immortal, or you turn into a monster and you're immortal, depending on the type of person that you are. And he finds a girl named Mana who has also mistakenly eaten mermaid flesh. And it's just about them traveling through time together in order to find out how to become mortals again. I liked this. I had a really, really, really good time reading this. I gave this 4 stars. The art style in here is just, it's beautiful, and the coloring in here is absolutely stunning. Really? That's absolutely gorgeous. The only reason it's not 5 stars is plainly because of what I call kind of hopscotching through time, because the pacing in here is a little bit confusing, at least it was for me, because as Yuta and Mana go through time, like as the different volumes depict them going through time, it's not really in chronological order, the timeline isn't. So, for example, we'll have Yuta and Mana having an adventure in, like, year whatever, and then the next volume will come on, and then it's like 10 years after that year, and then the next volume will come, and it's an adventure 5 years before that, and it's just, I don't know, it was very, like I said, very hopscotch. The lore, the mermaid lore in here is wild. There's so much shit that happens if you encounter a mermaid that you just want to steer the hell clear of those bitches, okay? But no, this book, oh, I loved it. It was so much fun, and it was just nostalgic. It reminded me so much of Inuyasha, and I'm definitely gonna pick up the second volume, because this, not only was the story really fun, and the action sequences were really good, but the art style is just absolutely beautiful. Next, we have, oh man, Court of the Vampire Queen by Katee Robert. This is about our main character, Mina, who is basically being sent by her dad to this bloodline vampire, who's just this really, really old vampire, in order to be basically a broodmare for him and a blood bag. This is a why choose romance, so not only does she fall in love with the first guy, but she falls in love with 2 more. And it's all about them trying to basically take down her tyrannical dad. This one I feel is a very special case because subjectively, this book is 4 stars for me. Objectively, however, I gave this 2 stars. This book is 90% smut and 10% plot. And the 10% of the plot is really centered around the smut, which I thought was hilarious and enjoyable as hell. But it's not technically very good, you know what I mean? I loved how the relationships between the 4 characters were done. I really, really loved that. I loved how they all just, you know, they all had their beef with one another, but they all ended up overcoming it, and the relationships between the 4 of them were just really, really well done in my opinion. However, for the characters themselves, Katee Robert dedicated this book to everyone who is Team Damon, Team Spike, and far too into Dmitry Belikov. The 3 guys that we meet are literally just those 3 guys just rewritten in order to have sex with a main character that honestly came off as a self-insert. The smut scenes were good. It's just there's one damn near every chapter. I did have a very enjoyable time reading this. I don't know if I would recommend this book outside of the romance community, honestly. And more specifically, I don't know if I would recommend this book outside of the Why Choose community. But I don't know. I really liked this. I had an enjoyable time reading it. It's not the best book I've ever read. It's really not. But it is now one of my favorite Katee Robert books, and it's now one of my favorite Why Choose books, okay? So I would say, if you're a fan of Katee Robert, And if you're a fan of Why Choose and you really don't care about the technicalities of writing, I'd say this is a good book to read, okay? Finally, the cream of the crop. The last book that I read for January was Tallstar's Revenge by Erin Hunter. This is basically just detailing Tallstar's life, who's the leader of Wind Clan, all the way from when he was a kit up till when he is leader of Wind Clan. And it details a very persistent struggle that he has to go through with his whole idea of revenge and mercy. This book, I gave it 5 stars. This is my favorite Warrior Cats book that I've ever read. This is now a favorite book of all time for me. It was just so existential for me. I think the reason why this book affected me so much is just plainly because I started reading Warrior Cats when I was in middle school, elementary school. So I saw Tallstar older when I was very young, and he had so many traits that I just admired so much. He was wise, he was fair, he was tranquil, he was just like looking out for everybody. And so now reading his super edition, now that I'm older and I'm seeing him younger, it's so... I don't know what else to say other than just existential, because he has so many qualities of his younger self that I had when I was younger and I still do have now. So I don't know, it just makes him so much more real to me, and I hold him so much more dearly now. I just love this super edition so much because it brought so many new things in. It brought clan dynamics that we'd barely ever seen before. It brought back Tallstar, and we saw a different version of him than we're used to in the mainstream series, and it connected so many things throughout the entire saga as a whole. I just loved this. There's a part in this book that is just completely, like, this page, wrinkled, tears, okay? I remember when I finished this book, I turned off all my lights, and I just cradled this book in my arms, curled up on my bed, and I just sobbed. Okay? If that's how Tallstar's book made me, I don't even want to know the state I'm gonna be in when I read Graystripe's book. If Graystripe dies in that book, the Erins will be paying for my therapy. So you guys, those were all the books that I read in January. I hope that you enjoyed. I also hope that we all, just as a collective, have a good reading month in February, okay? Because I do like reading a lot of books because it does make me feel productive. However, reading a lot of mediocre books, not really the best for the confidence, okay? So, yeah guys, like I said, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you will continue to look out for more stuff on my channel because I do have a lot of stuff planned. I hope that you're staying safe, and I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.